Good morning, and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. With a book review today. I know, we don't really do book reviews as often as we should. But that's what we're here to do today. Welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I don't remember if I said that or not. Yeah, so we're off to a great start. I'm exhausted. Which is weird, because I went to bed reasonably early last night, too, because... Look, let's just, before we get into the review, I feel like I've complained about this more than my fair share, but I will continue to. I collect physical movies. I like to have physical movies on, just in case you get to a point where you can't, find it on streaming. I like to be able to go to my shelf, grab a movie I want to watch, and put it on. That said, I'm also lazy. And because I review a lot of streaming TV, I have a lot of streaming services. So, this leaves me in the unenviable position of, alright, look, I have the DVD somewhere. I don't want to go through and look for it. I could just go on and stream the movie somewhere. It is available online somewhere. Definitely somewhere. On one of these 700 streaming services. And I went through and I cataloged them. I have Starz, I have Hulu, I have Disney Plus, I have Paramount Plus, if there's a streaming service, I think I have them all, including Tubi. I downloaded yesterday because I was looking for this movie. And the movie I'm looking for is not something obscure, it's not something small, it's not something that no one's ever heard of before. Josie and I, next month, are going to do an episode about the Hunger Games. We're going to be doing, ranking the Hunger Games books and movies. So I'm going through and rewatching and working on my ranking. I watched the first one last week. The first Hunger Games movie was available on YouTube for free, as was the entire quadrilogy of Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay Part 1, Part 2. I have all 4 books on my Audible library, so that's not an issue. So over on, over there, I'm like, alright, great, we got all of these things. What is going on? So I went on YouTube, and I'm like, alright, let me just watch Catching Fire now. And the ads are annoying, but what the hell? It's not for free anymore. And I was like, okay, that sucks. Let's figure out what streaming service it is on then, because if it's not on there, it is on something. So I went through, and I was like, let me just eliminate Disney Plus right off the bat, because it's not going to be on Disney Plus. Hulu, not there. Max, not there. Paramount Plus, not there. Peacock, not there. And I'm like, Starz, not there. And I'm going through every streaming service, and then I downloaded Tubi, and it wasn't on there either. And I'm like, this wasn't a small release movie. And this isn't the first time this has happened either. Because this also happened with Detective Pikachu a few months back when I did it the week that Mario came out, where I was like, wait, so shouldn't I, I have it on 4K. I bought it on Black Friday for like $5 or $7, and I had the 4K Blu-ray somewhere, but I don't want to get up and look for it. So let me just watch it on streaming. So I was like, all right, fine. So I went through it, and it's not streaming anywhere. And it's the same situation here. I have the 4K Blu-ray of all 4 of the Hunger Games movies. I have them all somewhere. I just don't want to go and find them because, see, me, I would prefer to have it be alphabetized, but things happen that doesn't always maintain. What the fuck is this guy doing? So I'm in this position where I'm like, alright, now I gotta find this movie. So I gotta find the movie today and watch it. Either way, and I texted one of my friends about it last night, and I was like, this is just awful. Streaming is great if you want to find something to watch. If you want to put on something, streaming is great. If you want to put on something specific, it's awful. Because what you're looking for, if you're looking for one thing in particular, unless you have Disney Plus and you know it was a Disney release, which in her case doesn't even apply, because she's looking for a movie that was a Disney release that isn't on Disney Plus. So yeah, it is kind of one of those things where it's like, it just sucks. Either way, today we're talking about Princess of Dune, the new Dune prequel book, which was provided to me in advance via NetGalley, and I enjoyed it, which I enjoyed it more than I've read. Now, look, if you've listened to this show, if you go back, there's an episode that's like 2.5 hours long, where Peter and I just, jerk Dune off for a solid 2.5 hours after the movie came out in 2021, and this is, I've said I'm not a huge fan of the expanded universe stuff. A lot of it feels like a lot of the Star Wars expanded universe, where it just doesn't quite fit right, and it's trying to force itself into fit in places where it doesn't always. And look, it's just one of those things where it's like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like, I didn't think that, like, the Butlerian Jihad book really worked for me, especially considering a lot of the dialogue didn't feel quite organic. I didn't really like the ending. Hunters and sandworms, I wasn't particularly fond of those. But look, some of them work better than others. I'll say that. And I think Princess of Dune is one that does. I think juxtaposing the origin, quote unquote, story for Irulan and Chani is interesting. And I think that this book does have the inherent issue of I get what it's trying to do. It's taking two characters that are, I don't want to say one-dimensional, but very much not fleshed out characters. Neither Irulan or Chani are particularly well fleshed out during the Dune books they exist in. In the case of Chani, it's Dune and Messiah, and in the case of Irulan, it's Dune, Messiah, and Dune, Messiah, and children of Dune. Yeah, because neither of them are in the later one. Because that's like 2,000 years, or 10,000 years, 2,000 years later. But look, I think that in that way, it kind of does flesh it out a little bit. It's just, you end up with some inherent oddities to it. Like, one of the first things that really caught my eye was like, okay, like, I'm not gonna get into full spoiler territory on anything, but like, at one point, like, they show what a funeral for a guild navigator is, and I think that to that end, like, you get some really interesting stuff about the emasculation of Emperor Shaddam, and about how his power isn't quite entirely his, and his biggest asset is the ability to marry off his daughter, because like, they really illustrate that well in the book. But I think that, like, when they drop the body off on Arrakis, and the body is left there, and Chani sees where the body is, it's like, huh, you'd think that's something that Chani would have mentioned at some point, like, to Paul, like, oh, hey, by the way, not long before you showed up, I saw a guild navigator's body get left behind. Like, it's one of those things that you would think would be mentioned. But I think that, like, for what it is, I think the story with Irulan is more interesting, because the story with Irulan provides more information, and more color to the world in a way that the Chani story really doesn't. And I think the issue with that is, it's just, the Chani story doesn't provide as much color because we've lived with the Fremen for so long. There's not much more you can add to that. And then what happens is you end up with this unenviable situation where you give these characters so much autonomy that the minute they meet Paul, in a way, it kind of pushes them backward a little bit. Because if you're going to sit here and give these characters so much autonomy going into this book, with this book, and then in short order later they meet Paul and immediately give it all up. It feels weirder than had this book not happened, if that makes sense. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, where it's like, you can sit here and you can act like it's like, okay, so we're going to give them, like, a kind of a 21st century, read on how we should write female characters. But the book that this leads into came out in 1965. And it's written very much like a 1965 book. The female characters are written very much like a book from 1965. And to that end, I don't think that it makes a ton of sense. Like, it's just one of those weird things where it's like, I don't quite understand what the point of that was. And no, I get kind of why you would do it, but at the same time, I don't think it was a needed addition to the canon. I don't think you needed to have this expansion of who these characters are. Because at the end of the day, nothing that's added in this book is really needed. Nothing that's added in this book is really a requirement to understand who why are they the way they are? Well, I mean, I don't think that anyone was really questioning it going into, any of the Dune books. It's not like they were like, you know what, we need another 400 pages devoted to illustrating why Cheney and why, what's it called, and why, who was the other one? Why, who's the other one? Why Cheney and Irulan are the, are act out the way they do. Which I think everything was pretty well laid out in the original books. I don't think you really needed this expansion to explain it, nor do I think the expansion really does enough to explain why they go from that to the more subservient role under Paul, which I think is a pretty big, it's a pretty weird thing. But yeah, so I don't know. I think I didn't hate the book. I'm not saying the book is bad. I'm saying the book is definitely worth reading because there's a lot of cool lore expansion. And I think that really getting to look into the world of the Emperor before Paul takes over as ruler of the universe, to see what the world of Shaddam was like, is interesting. It's just, once you get into the minutia of what's going on in the siege with Cheney and the rest of the Fremen, that's where it kind of starts to lose me. Because I'm like, I don't know. I don't think we need Cheney to be explained in this way and then have it kind of contradicted the next time we see her. Like, we got everything we need on that. It's just, we're just retreading information. It honestly, it ends up feeling like it's padding to make the book longer. Or to just create a juxtaposition between the more ruthless nature of Arrakis and that level of ruthless compared to the level of ruthless that existed within the within the Empire, or not the Empire, that's not the right word, what the fuck's the word they use? The Imperium, that's the word they use. Slightly different, but largely the same thing. Either way, I would say it's worth a read. If you enjoy Dune, I think this is one of the better of the Expanded Universe books. I mean, look, I don't think Expanded Universe is the right word. I'm using Star Wars terminology. It is one of the better Expanded Universe books. Don't get me wrong. But I think you will still get a solid, version of this, of the story of Dune, just by sticking with the original 6, which is Dune through Chapter House. If you've reached Hunters, you've gone too far. But look, we'll wrap up there for today. I know today I was going to do the catch up with the what's it called with Wheel of Time. I will do that next week, or this week when we do the what's it called, the next 2 episodes. What's it called on Saturday? I think we're doing that. But we'll wrap up there for today. And until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.